Today I'm going to be talking all about my book, Beyond Bananas and Condoms, how it came to be, how I came to be published, the process of being published, and then the aftermath of being published, how I had to tackle Instagram censoring me and my local county banning my book in their libraries. Yeah, it's going to be a fun video. And also, if you stay until the end, you'll be getting a chance for winning a copy of my book, a signed copy with a personalised little message. So, watch the entire video. Then at the end, I will tell you how to get involved in the giveaway. And yeah, let's get into it. How did this non-binary, queer, trans, neurodivergent, dyslexic get published? I'll tell you. The first stage of writing a book and being published is obviously at the very beginning, coming up with a concept of a book that you think people need, that you want to write, something that you're really passionate about. So for me, my idea for my book, Beyond Bananas and Condoms, came from my master's dissertation, which covered the history of trans sex education in the UK from the years 2000 to 2020. 2020? That was weird saying 2020. During my master's degree, when I was writing this dissertation, I realised how poor sex education in the UK was. And obviously I knew that already, being a sex educator, being someone who works and delivers sex education across the country to young people, to older people, to organisations and companies. I know that trans people aren't really in the curriculum because I'm a trans person and a non-binary person, and I knew nothing about trans and queer sex until I was in my 20s, in lockdown, and had nothing but time on my hands. So I finished that dissertation, loved it, did great, got my master's degree. It was following finishing that I started a new role, and when I was in that new role, I was speaking to one of the individuals just as a chit-chat at lunchtime, explaining my, previous history as a teacher and then as a master's student. And I was telling her about my dissertation, and she seemed really interested in it, and she asked me, would you ever consider publishing it? Now, I have considered publishing my actual dissertation. However, as of right now, it is really outdated and would need a big refresh to be current. But I also didn't want to just publish something that was very academic. I wanted to publish something that could be accessible to all individuals, that could be easily picked up, that could help the people that I was directly talking about in that master's dissertation: teachers, parents, kids, queer or not, trans or not. So I said to her, I'm not sure about publishing something, that is very academic, but I would love to publish something that could be used by everyone. And she suggested that I get in contact with an agent that she knew from United Agents. And it was here that I began kind of the serious journey of becoming a published author. I didn't kind of think anything more than just I'd email this person and maybe they would see it was a somewhat good idea, but I didn't know if anything would come from it. So I received the agent's information. I popped her an email, gave a little summary of who I am, what I'm about, my book idea, and she wanted to have a call. She wanted to chat. So we had various calls and chats, and she was very much into the idea of me writing a book about sex education, specifically for LGBTQIA plus individuals, but also for all individuals who may just want to supplement their sex education knowledge. Agent then suggested that I start writing out a few chapters, a few first chapters, but also outline the book. So give an example of what it would be called, the titles of each chapter, what each chapter would consist of, whether there would be illustrations, who would illustrate it. Myself, I would want to illustrate my own book. But also she wanted me to put into a document all my information about myself. So my experiences as a writer, my previous publications, my social media output and engagement, kind of all of those kind of general things about you if you are in the online space, things that people may want to know if they're going to work with you. But after some time, I put this document together. It had a very rough first chapter, very rough title, which I will talk about the title in a minute, but a very rough title, some information about me, and then that was it. I sent it off to her and she said, yeah, that's great, I'll edit it a little bit because I'm dyslexic, so I appreciated her editing it, making it a bit more cleaner. And then she emailed that out to various publishers. She emailed that out to various publishers, and the most common response we received was, it's too inclusive. And that was a kick in the teeth because, of course, I want my book to be inclusive, and there is no way of being too inclusive. Like, that's not a real thing. But they wanted me to focus specifically on one identity or one community rather than trying to kind of cater to every individual. Which I obviously put my foot down and said, no, if you think it's too inclusive, if you don't want me to write something that is so inclusive, then obviously you're not the publisher I want to work with. So some time passed, and then we received feedback from JKP. JKP said they loved the idea, they definitely wanted it, and then after some more legal kind of hoops that we had to jump through, confirming who would illustrate it and, what the payment would be for it, how many words there would be, how many pages, all of that kind of stuff. I began fully writing my book, knowing that it was going to be published with JKP, and I was given over 2 years to write the book and to get it out and published and put into the world, in people's hands. So I was given 2 years to write this book, and it was at that moment that I realized I have to write the book now. And of course, I loved writing my book, but it is daunting to know that you have to hit a certain amount of chapters or page numbers or word count by a certain date, that it has to be signed off, and then you have to go through various different steps of the process before it gets published. It's not just you write it once, it gets edited, it goes out. It's a baby. You need to baby your book. It's a process. And it was something that I wasn't really expecting, because no one ever talks about how, authors become authors, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video. So then I began really writing my book, and I would spend most evenings after I finished work writing chapters, jumping from chapter to chapter. Now, I'm going to give some examples of how I wrote my book. This isn't guidance because, again, I'm neurodivergent, I'm dyslexic, I'm all over the place. But for me, this is how I wrote my book, and if you can take anything from it, go for it. Leave what you don't want to, because this process worked for me, but it might not work for everyone. How I went about it was I wrote each chapter in a different Google document. So each chapter would have a heading and a title, a rough title, because they would all be changed eventually, but a rough title, and then I would bullet point the topics I wanted to cover in each of those chapters, and then I would write each of those chapters. And I think the chapter I focused most on was the first and second chapter, which is specifically about gender identity and sex, because they're the two heaviest chapters and the longest chapters of my book. I really dedicated a lot of time to writing those, but I would jump between chapters. Like one day I would be writing chapter 4, and then I'd go back to chapter 2, and then I'd go to chapter 8. So it was very much me just writing whatever my brain felt like it wanted to write in that moment, and writing whenever I had the capacity to. And there were some days where I just didn't write at all. There were some weeks where I didn't write at all because life gets in the way, but I tried to keep somewhat of a routine going that I would write in the evenings. And then I also had a book that I would write information in that I needed to. So for example, if I thought, I wanted to include the genderbread person in chapter 1, I would write that down, write out all the points I wanted to talk about it, and then tick it off physically when I had done that. I'm a very physical person. I like making lists. I like having diaries. So for me, that worked a lot, because otherwise it's just Google Docs with loads of words, and it becomes too much. I like something tactile that I can touch and write on. So I would write out my notes on there as well. Alongside writing the book, I obviously also had to illustrate it, and typically illustrators are either given some props or some outlines of chapters, and they can kind of create illustrations based on what they have, or they are given the entire manuscript before it gets edited to the final edition, and they will then draw things relating to what they read in the chapter. But for me, because I was writing it and also illustrating it, I would write something and think, this is a great idea for an illustration, and then I would stop writing, draw the illustration, go back to writing, and continue that process throughout. And that worked really well for me because it allowed me to take a moment away from writing and do something more physical and more creative, but also meant that my illustrations felt very connected, and I still think they do feel very connected to the words that I'm speaking about on that page next to the illustration, because they were made at the same time. They don't exist without one another, and I really enjoy that about my illustrations and the process of illustrating my own book, even though it was exhausting and it's a whole other job to be illustrating your book as well as writing it. But for me, I really enjoyed the fact that I was able to do that, and that my whole book is mine, and that I didn't have to explain to someone how an illustration should look. I just was able to do that myself, and luckily enough, my agent and my publisher also allowed me to do that as well. I've been writing the book for like 2 years now. It's been through a few edits, and we're getting to the point where we're finalizing things. So this is where, conversations about titles come into play, chapter titles, how the book would look, how we would sell it. And originally the book title was, I believe it was Sexplain That. Or it was just like something like sex ed. It was very basic. Eventually my publisher suggested that we go with the title Beyond Bananas and Condoms, because there's one section in my intro where I talk about the most common experience in sex ed, which is putting a condom on a banana and thinking that that is going to be, all that kids need to have safer sex ed, which it isn't. But because it's such a common experience, they thought that that would be a really good title for the book, which I really agreed with. Side note, I hate bananas, and that's something that comes up in conversation. It came up at my panel at Urban Outfitters. People were like, oh, did you choose the name because you like bananas? And I had to say with my full chest, I hate bananas. And the fact that now my name and my book is associated with bananas for the rest of my life makes me want to cry. But yeah, that's a piece of nugget of information that not everybody will know about me and my book. So we had the title down, and that's when we decided to go with the beyond theme. So each chapter would say beyond something. So beyond men and women, beyond pads and tampons, beyond gay and straight. And that continues throughout the entirety of the book, which again, I think is really nice because it ties it all together. And I do like the idea of beyond something. So I really enjoyed that as well, and kind of that process of going through the chapters and actually making them all link and making it look like they all relate to each other, because they do. But when I was writing it, they were obviously standalone chapters that I had dedicated time individually to. Then it came to the colour of the book, and if you know me, I absolutely love the colour pink. It is my thing. The original cover and colour of the book was not pink. It was actually yellow and brown, which I will say I stood down. I put my foot down and said, no, I will not be having a book that is brown and yellow. I will be having a book that is pink. So luckily they literally took the colours from my Instagram, and she's gorgeous. I love her. I love her so much. Obviously we also added in the byline of the stating that LGBTQIA plus inclusive sex education you never got at school, just to make it clear what the book was about. And then we also reached out to a few of my friends, a few individuals that I know, to, read the book in its very draft form and to give their insights and to give us a review of it, which I really appreciate all the people that did that. So many thanks. So we're now at the stage where my cover is done, my title is done, the draft has been drafted and edited, and now we're at the final stage where the illustrations are all good, they're slotted into the pages, the writing is all correct, it's all grammatically correct, we're going to be printing soon. And this was a really exciting time when I was able to share my cover on Instagram and reveal my book to the world. And this is when we also opened pre-orders as well. Pre-orders are really good for first-time authors, because being a first-time author is insanely hard at the moment. It is so hard to be a first-time author, particularly in the field that I'm in. So doing a pre-sale really helped boost those numbers, and it got people excited for the book for when it would come out a few months later. Now, we're in 2025, February. My book is released into the world. I'm very happy about this, of course. I did a whole book unboxing when I actually got physical copies of it, but my book was out in the world. It was available to be bought in various stores up and down the country and across the globe as well. And from here, this is when I had to focus on promotion. And I took on a lot of my promotion responsibilities. So all of the giveaways, or most of the giveaways that I did, were through myself. I organised my book launch, my book signing, my book reading at the Common Press in London. And then from then on, I've organised most of my other related book content or events as well. So the book is out in the world, and I feel like that was a very concise journey, but that's generally what it felt like. It went from I have an idea to I'm signing a contract to I've written this book and this page, for example, 20,000 times, and now it's being edited. Here's a title, here's a book cover, boom, out in the world. It felt very much like that, very quick. Compared to, how actually time went, it was over 2 years, but for me, it felt like a blink of an eye. And the reason I know it was actually much longer than it felt was because when I went back to do edits, I had to change a lot of the sentences because I had either moved or left a relationship or changed my pronouns or changed the label that I used to describe myself. So I had to change it to fit the current me. And I had to do that a few times throughout the process, which is really interesting because I changed quite a lot through writing my book, and I learned a lot about myself and my transness whilst writing my book. So it was actually quite cathartic to have to keep going back to the introduction, going back to the who is Dee, and rewriting it and having to inform my publisher and my agent that I had to rewrite it because I had changed and that they had to reflect that in their own communications and comms. So yeah, it was very cathartic for me, and it helped me to understand myself, my identity, and what I was going through way more. And I would love to read back my first drafts to see who I was back then. I was using they, he pronouns. I was in a different relationship, living in a different place, and I didn't feel trans enough at all. And now I feel completely myself, and I'm really happy that my book is now in a way that reflects who I am now and who I am currently, because of course I can change again, but I'm very happy with the way it is right now. But that shows how long the process was, because I changed so much throughout the start of that process to the end of that process. Now I want to talk a little bit about the difficulties of publishing a sex ed book, or specifically a LGBTQIA plus book, because no one really talks about how hard it is. I think it is really difficult. For example, for the first month or so, all of my Instagram posts about my book were blocked and reported as sexually explicit on Instagram. So actually, none of my book promo was seen by anyone for a while, and I had to actually report that and counter it. And the only way I could counter that online was to change the O's in condoms to zeros, and I still have to do that today because otherwise my book gets flagged and my account gets flagged, and then I can't share my book or content online. So that was something I didn't expect to happen, which is obviously quite ironic when you think about the fact that my book is about being inclusive and using the correct terminology for words, but I can't even say the words condoms without Instagram flagging it. It was really ironic, but also really distressing at the time that it happened. So that was something that I experienced that I wasn't prepared for and that I wasn't expecting to happen because of my time being a sex educator online. I didn't think that word would flag, but apparently it does now. The issue that I faced is I live in the county of Kent, and as of right now, Kent has banned all LGBTQIA plus books, or specifically trans books, in their libraries across the county, and my book is for 16 plus, so that includes my book. And it's something that me and my publisher and agent are currently tackling. But that's another thing that I knew was going to happen, was my book could be banned across the world, and it most definitely isn't available in some places. It is available in the US, but I'm not sure what states, because various states won't allow it. But that was something as well that I had to tackle, and still tackle to this day, because book bans are increasing across the globe. And when your book talks about being trans and also sex ed, they're the two most common categories that will be banned or will be, restricted by social media or outreach or in physical stores. They won't be allowed to have them on display, for example. Another part of my book that I wanted to talk about was my dedication. So I dedicated my book to all trans young people who are facing just such difficult times right now, but particularly I dedicated it to my campaign, Trans Kids Deserve to Grow Up, and to Corey Hall, who sadly is no longer with us. And I really wanted to make sure that my book was able to make change for young people, and also for people working with young people, like parents, teachers, all individuals basically. And the response I have received so far is that it is true. My book is helping young people across the country. I recently went to a book signing at a local college where I grew up, and a young person said to me that this book would save lives, which is a response to my book that I will always remember and that I will always bring up, because it means so much to me. Since my book has been out in the world, it has been featured in Queer AF, it's been featured in Diva, it's been featured in Cosmo, it's been featured in Pink News. It has 5 out of 5 on Amazon, 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. It has some amazing reviews. It's also had some lovely in-person reviews. I've signed various copies. I've read my book out loud at Urban Outfitters. It's in the Urban Outfitters LGBTQIA+ library. It's done pretty well. My book has done pretty well, and I won't talk about numbers because I don't know everything yet, but it's done pretty well. But I never really cared about numbers. I generally just wanted to have a book out there that someone could pick up and learn from and feel held by. So I'm glad that I was able to do that. And as I say in the book, there might be things that are outdated by the time you get your hands on the book. There might be things that you wish I had added, because there are things that I wish I had added. I wish I'd spent a whole chapter on disabled sex, but I wasn't able to. I wish I'd spent more time talking about the legal side of sex education, but also a lot of the things that happened right now that are impacting us happened after my book was published, so I'm not obviously able to edit that. But I would have loved to be able to add more to the book. So by the time the book is in your hands, it might be a little bit outdated. There might be new terms, there might be new legislation. But that's something that I'm very open about in my book as well, because sex education is a journey. I don't want my book to be a one-stop shop. It has to be a jumping off point for you to go out and read other things, to find your own research, and maybe to write your own book as well. If I didn't cover something that you feel very highly about, go and do that. I want you to do that. I want that for you. Yeah, that is the whole of my book publishing journey. At this moment in time, I'm currently recording my audio, which is taking a little bit more time than expected, because me being dyslexic, it's very difficult to read a book out loud whilst being able to pronounce every single word and say it correctly and get all those like inflections correctly. But also just it's physically exhausting to be in a studio reading your book out. It's so exhausting. No one talks about it. I did it for 1 day straight and I was very burnt out for the next few days after that. So I have a few more sessions to go with that, but hopefully the audiobook will be out soon, because I know a lot of individuals are really interested in the audiobook version and hearing my little voice talking about all the things I speak about. Which, a side note, I don't get embarrassed about talking about sex ed. Obviously, it's my whole job, but there is something about talking about your own vulva in front of a man who is recording your audio, just used to, in a little booth. I've never felt that anxiety and embarrassment ever. I've always been so open and honest and confident about talking about sex ed. Like, I've delivered workshops in front of like 600 plus people, but that, I was like, you know what, I'm embarrassed. If you would like me to do a video all about my audio recording, let me know, because I'm still in the process of it and I have a lot to talk about in relation to it, and I think it would be really helpful for individuals who are also neurodivergent like myself, and to hopefully give you some tips and tricks, because I'm also learning whilst I'm recording and doing this, but hopefully I can help you so you don't have the same experiences as me. If you made it to the end of the video, you will know that I am doing a giveaway of my book, Beyond Bananas and Condoms. I have a few copies spare. So I was thinking of giving away 2 or 3 signed copies of my book from my own personal collection. And I also was thinking about writing a little note inside it as well. Something hopeful, something to affirm individual. So to enter this giveaway, all I ask is that you go down into the comment section and you comment something about your sex education growing up, whether it was poor, whether it was good. I would love to know something about your own personal experience. Also, if you already have a copy of my book but you would like another one, please feel free to get involved in the competition. You can give it to your local library, your local LGBTQIA plus space, a local school, a friend, a family member. It doesn't matter. If you have a copy already, still get involved. So yes, comment below something about your own personal sex ed experience. I will announce the winners over on my Instagram, so please also follow my Instagram to be able to receive that notification. It'll be on my story. I'll also write a comment on my YouTube video on this one, but follow my Instagram to make sure that you're on it with that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you would like me to do a video on my audio recording experience, let me know. If you would like me to do a Q&A on my book covering things that maybe I didn't cover in this video, let me know as well. But other than that, subscribe to my Substack, check out my TikTok, subscribe to this channel as well, and buy my book.